Next segment tonight, if a conservative or even a moderate journalist criticizes the Koran, all hell breaks loose in the media. But a left-wing comedian can pretty much skate on that.
We are dealing with a culture that is in its medieval era. It comes from a hate-filled holy book, the Koran, which is taken very literally by its people. They are trying to get nuclear weapons. I don't think Tim McVeigh would ever have tried to get a nuclear weapon because I think right-wing nuts, they think they love this country.
All right, now reaction from the media about that? Zero, nothing. And even Congressman Keith Ellison, who was on in the discussion, was tepid in his response to the attack on the Koran.
Bill, I think that you should investigate this issue a little more because I think that you're lumping together things that shouldn't be lumped together, and you're casting a very wide net and therefore coming to the wrong conclusions.
Now, he was talking Bill Maher. Imagine if Bill O'Reilly said that to Congressman Ellison, which I had him on last week. The response a little bit different. Joining us on Washington Analyze, Fox News analyst Maher Catherine Ham Williams. So, Juan, all you said was you get a little nervous seeing a Muslim at the airport, getting on a plane. Maher calls the Koran a hate-filled holy book. NPR should be doing hours on this, should it not?
Hours? Days? I mean, literally, if I had said something like that, well, wait a second, forget me. What if Bill O'Reilly had said something like that?
Out of there.
What
Yeah.
if you? Because they would have stripped you in public, man. They would have tied you to the pillar and be whipping you and stoking you. That's what would have happened to you.
So why, Juan? Why is this? Now, look. Before I let Juan answer, I do have two reasons which may take the edge off this. Number one, Mr. War's program is on HBO. It's on during the weekend. I don't know how well watched it is. Number two, with the Japanese intrusion on cable news, everybody's paying attention to that, this takes on a lesser importance. So that might be two reasons why nobody is involved with this one.
Well, I think it's also important to say here that, there's oftentimes excuses made for Bill Maher because people say, oh, he's a comedian. But that's a show in which he has serious people like Congressman Ellison on. He's having a discussion.
Absolutely.
And he describes the Koran as a hate-filled document. Now, if you, Bill O'Reilly, you're doing an information show here, and if you said it, I don't think they'd say, oh, well, that's just Bill O'Reilly. He's a big personality. No, they'd say, yes, it's a news show, and you would be held responsible.
And look, some people think I'm a comedian, Maher Catherine. I mean, I've heard that before. I'm a joke. Isn't that the same thing as a comedian? I'm a joke. All right, so what's your theory about why Maher skates about this?
Well, it's clearly a double standard, partly because, I think mostly because he's a liberal. He's allowed to say these things, even in front of Keith Ellison. I think the irony is that Keith Ellison, who broke down into tears at the hearing that Representative Pete King held the other day, he hears something far more broad-brushed and far more mean and sort of about Islam than anything he heard at the hearing the other day, and it's just sort of like, well, let's have a conversation about this. But Bill Maher actually succeeded in saying something actually politically incorrect this time instead of the liberal orthodoxy he usually labels as politically incorrect.
Well, I thought Mr. Ellison's tepid response was interesting too, which is why I noted it. Because if somebody said to me, hey, the New Testament of the Bible is hate-filled screed, which is dangerous to the world, I pretty much would take exception to that and have a much more spirited response than Mr. Ellison did, Juan. And I'm saying, does he intimidate the congressman and other left-wingers because they're not expecting this from one of their own?
No, the last part of your statement is the precise analysis I'd offer you, Bill. He's one of their own. So therefore, you know what? You get a pass. You know what? Yeah, maybe, Bill, you're just going off a little bit. You're off. You need to investigate it more. You need to look into it more. But they don't attack him. They don't question his credibility. And remember, he said it was a hate-filled document. I hope everybody hears that. I mean, because if I said that, boy, all hell. But hate-filled document. And remember that when you're talking about people like Major Nadal Hassan, the guy who did the shooting at Fort Hood, when you're talking about the Times Square bomber, I could go on, they all cite the Koran. And so Maher is using that as the basis, and Keith Ellison doesn't then engage in the debate. He just says, oh, you're just a little off. You need to reconsider.
I thought it was a little wimpy, I mean, with all due respect to the congressman. Now, the other thing that makes this a very interesting thing, Maher Catherine, is that it isn't politically based. Maher's statement is not politically based. He just hates all religion. You know that. He's an atheist. He hates all religions. It could be any religion. If it's in the spotlight, he's going to take an axe to it. I don't think Ellison processed that. I could be wrong. But when you hear Maher say this stuff, it isn't out of any political belief. It's an anti-religious across the board belief. Let Mary Catherine wrap it up for us.
No, I think what's going on here is that he's getting a double standard, and the fact is, what I kind of like about the political incorrectness of the discussion is that political correctness is what prevents us from seeing the actual real conflict between moderate and fundamentalist forces in Islam and facing up to that, and Keith Ellison himself facing up to that and saying, we have a problem that we need to fix. And you heard at that hearing the other day, real Muslims dealing with this problem in their communities, and people were freaking out so much about the political correctness that they couldn't hear those stories, and I think we need to hear them and deal with that.
Well, you know, just like the Christian religion and the Jewish religion, there are a lot of different interpretations of the scripture. You know, there are fundamentalist Christians, and then there are Christians who don't take it literally. They take it as a metaphor.
But don't use that as an excuse, because those terrorists are talking jihad. I mean, they're not talking about a personal journey. They're talking about killing me and you.
There are peaceful Muslims, Juan, I think you would agree with me, who read the Koran, and they're not incited to blow anybody up. So,
no, I was just picking up on Mary Catherine's point that you've got to be honest about the fact that people are using that document as justification for violent actions.
No doubt about it. All right, thanks very much for a good discussion. Plenty more ahead as a factor moves along this evening.